Kash Patel did an interview with Catherine Herridge. I will not be as hard on Catherine Herridge as I will be on Kash Patel. And there's the old expression, you always hurt the ones you love, or, you're only critical of people that you expect more from or that you want to see more from. And it's not a question of being critical for the sake of being critical. And it's not a question of being unfairly critical. We're talking about Kash Patel, the man who wrote the book American Gangster, the man who basically vowed to take down the deep state. The man who once upon a time said he was going to take the FBI headquarters and turn it into a museum for the deep state. I made a glib, tongue-in-cheek post that, I didn't realize when Kash Patel said he was going to turn the FBI headquarters into the museum of the deep state, it was because they were going to move into bigger and better and fancier offices. I listened to the entirety of the Catherine Herridge interview. The amount of times and the amount of time of that interview that Kash was talking about one of the biggest accomplishments being they're moving into the Reagan building across the street and investing hundreds of millions of dollars into new offices for the FBI. The very same FBI that has been at the source of corruption for the last, since its inception, really, but at the very least, materially, for the last decade as relates to Donald Trump. It was the weirdest thing in the world to watch the interview kick off. I'm reluctant to use the I'm going to have to use the CommuTube. It's shocking to see the interview kick off with a statement that I think underlies or belies the problem and the disbelief that so many of us out there who have lived through the last decade of thorough, confirmed, demonstrable FBI corruption, to hear two men, let's say one in particular, Kash Patel comes in, and when Dan Bongino and Kash Patel came in, we're like, it's going to clean house. These are the American gangster is going to come in and he's going to cut the trash out of the FBI. He's going to cut the corruption out of the FBI. They have been talking about the corruption of the previous FBI, burn bags that have been left in the FBI headquarters that were apparently intended to be destroyed but somehow survived. The FBI lawyer back in 2016 falsifying evidence, submitting it to a FISA court, the FBI spying on people. A decade of corruption targeting Trump. Patel comes in, and this was the question that we had from the beginning. Is the institution itself irremediably corrupt, or can it be reshaped? I'll let Patel answer that question.
Speaking with straight to the point, when you arrived here at FBI headquarters 9 months ago, what did you find?
Catherine, it's great to be with you. Thanks for coming here to FBI headquarters and sitting down with us. When I first got to the Bureau, I knew I would find one thing for sure, and that is a dedicated workforce to the mission. I also knew I would find things that need to be fixed and changed and addressed in terms of how we prosecute and investigate cases, in terms of how we treat the workforce and how we care for them. This building, for instance, our infrastructure systems, all these things that a place like the FBI needs to be functional have to be serviced. And I knew I would find a lot of those matters in disarray, unfortunately, because of years of neglect.
I'm going to stop it right there. That's like, you'll tell me if you share my sentiment. That's like getting punched in the stomach by an answer. Like when I came to the FBI, I was expecting to find a dedicated workforce from the man who basically called the FBI a deep state apparatus that needed to be placed in the bins of memories and turned into a museum. And it's crazy to see Kash Patel basically say, I'm coming into an organization. What was the corruption in the FBI if you're coming to a dedicated workforce that only wants to do good? And I'm, again, the FBI does good work on apolitical criminal stuff. They do good work on political criminal stuff. They got to the guy who was threatening Benny Johnson. He will be forever grateful to and indebted to the FBI for their swift, effective work on that. They do good crime work. Some people are going to say, what the hell do you need the FBI for? State authorities, are constitutionally created or exist under the Constitution for those reasons. The FBI is not a constitutional entity. It has no business doing it. The man who called it basically an apparatus of the deep state, who vowed to take it on, dismantle it, comes in and now says that everyone who works for this force, who has been participating to some extent or another in the corruption, I came and found a great workforce. And, the biggest things to do were to redo the building. So it starts off with a gut punch for anybody who's wanted to say, yeah, we've got a massively partisan, weaponized element of the FBI, and here's what we're doing to attack it, to address it, to purge it. Now, I'm not giving Catherine Herridge a hard time here. She asked questions like half of the answers were, I'm reiterating public statements. I'm reiterating what was already publicly said. I can't answer that. There's an ongoing investigation. Can't answer Charlie Kirk. We're going to get to all these clips because I was quickly putting them together before the show. I'm not faulting Catherine Herridge, but I would have asked the question, do you feel, or in your experience now, is there an element of the FBI, what percentage of the rank and file, the just let good cops be good cops, what percentage of the 33,000 FBI employees have participated in weaponized prosecutions over the last 10 years? I mean, I guess I'm not being harsh on her. It's always easier, those who don't do correct and those who can't do teach. And I'm not trying to teach anybody. But my father also always says, those who don't draft the legal proceedings always find the typos. And I live by that. Like, people pick on me for typos. Piss off. Like, when you draft the proceedings and you do the research and you put it all together, for the person who did none of that work, the easiest thing is sitting there reading it and you got a typo over there. So I'm not doing that. Had I had this interview, or had I been able to submit follow-up questions, I would have had a few. But one question I would have had is, what percentage of the FBI's 33,000 employees do you believe are politically partisan? None? I mean, none? Then who the hell weaponized the FBI to the point that it's been weaponized for the last decade? When they go and they arm raid, pre-dawn raids of pro-life activists, when they go and basically, raid and kill a 70-some-odd-year-old person who's incapable of following through on whatever threats he was posting on Facebook, when they go do pre-dawn raids on, I don't want to make a mistake on his name, I think it was Alpha Warrior, and with their, concussive grenades and trying to basically invite people to respond to what they think might be an intruder with a gun so they can, basically kill the person, which is what they did, the FBI, the corrupt one under the previous administration, to at least one person. What percentage of them are still there? How do you plan on purging the FBI of this activist element? It sounded like, and I'm maybe not projecting, but maybe I'm just imagining, it almost sounded like Patel felt the need to kiss the ass of the rank and file of the FBI, the same rank and file that has been demonstrably corrupted over the last decade. I mean, the Peter Strokes, the Lisa Pages, the what's his face, the Kevin Kleinsmiths, everyone involved in that. Oh, it was only Kevin Kleinsmith who falsified evidence and submitted it to a FISA court. Everyone else on the Carter Page investigation, clean as the snow is white. And there were none of these questions. It was 27 minutes of the most vapid, wishy-washy answers you could possibly imagine. Now, I'll start with the one highlight here, which was, these are in reverse chronological order. So the ones on the bottom were earlier on in the interview, and then the ones later on are from later on in the interview. Let's play this one and hear what Catherine asked and what Kash Patel had to answer.
Okay, I want to talk about the Russia collusion cases. Former FBI Director Comey is pushing hard to get his case dismissed. Are you confident the interim U.S. Attorney, Lindsay Halligan, can secure a conviction?
I can't comment on the finality of the case since it's pending and the allegations are before a court for Mr. Comey. But what I can tell you is this Department of Justice under the Attorney General and U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan have been following the facts and the law and making a presentment based solely on that. And the presentation of evidence that was divulged just recently in the pleadings shows the world the substantive information that we have collected when bringing this case and acting on the facts and the law.
Am I being unduly harsh, unduly arrogant, unduly judgmental to say that answer is a non-answer? Like, you don't need to tell people to follow the law. It goes without saying. You don't need to say we're following the facts and following the law. It should go without saying, and B, it's kind of something that we've heard over and over and over again. Now, C, this also predates the dismissal of James Comey's indictment. And now I'm not going to rail against Halligan. I am going to say that that indictment was weak sauce. That was my initial opinion. Everyone's like, Viva, they finally came down. They finally got one deep state actor. Good, you got one deep state actor, James Comey, on two of the most wishy-washy, flaccid indictment charges you could have gotten under the circumstances. Okay, fine. Better that than nothing. Those charges have since been dismissed. And I'm not faulting Halligan, and there's no but to that. I believe it is judicial activism, also known as corruption, depending on how you phrase it, that they were going to do this anyhow. I called it a while back. It was going to be jury nullification or judicial nullification, and we've now gotten to the judicial nullification. That indictment could have been more kosher than a flipping Lester's pickle. Lester's smoked me. That's actually not kosher smoked me, so it doesn't matter. It could have been every dotted I and every crossed T. It could have been an example of perfection. And the activist judge would have still found a way to toss that indictment as he did. The fact that it was two piddly charges was disappointing given what there was going on there. And then they try to revamp it and, add some allegations about the other lies of statements that Comey made in his collusion with the Columbia law professor there. I forget his name now. Dan Richmond, I think. It was a weak indictment, in my view. Better than nothing, fine. Now it's been tossed. And now what? One question I would have had, a follow-up question. It would have been the initial question I asked a while back of Kash is, why has Comey not been charged with anything else? Is he under investigation for anything else? The answer might have been, I can't comment on any current pending investigation. Why wasn't James Comey charged for the 8647 post? Some of you out there are going to say, Viva, you're importing your Canadian anti-freedom of speech, whatever. First of all, you're entitled to your opinion, and I'm being very careful to not import the communism from Canada, but rather the God-given rights and reaffirm the God-given rights that these United States of America fought for from the very same parliamentary system that now, resides up in Canada. But when a FBI director comes out with what is objectively mob talk, 86 means what it means, and everybody knows what it means. It was on The Sopranos multiple times, and funny enough, James Comey talked about how he used to watch The Sopranos. When the director of the FBI puts out that message, it's not free speech, and it's not like anybody on Twitter saying 8647. A, disagree with me all you want, that's fine. We can have a disagreement on that. B, when the FBI comes out and says, now we've got to go investigate copycat threats from people who are replicating this 8647 statement, well, now they're acknowledging that they're investigating others for copycat threats, but not investigating or charging the originator of the copycat, James Comey. So it's what have we seen as relates to the deep state actors facing justice for the Russia collusion? Other than James Comey, who do we have? Mustache Man? What's his face? James Bolton? John Bolton? So a weak sauce answer, that is, we're following the law and following the facts, and now the facts are that has been dismissed. Whether or not it's going to be time barred as relates to James Comey, to be determined. All right, let's go to highlight number 2.
On the Epstein files. The Epstein Files Transparency Act has a very tight deadline, 30 days, to produce unclassified records. Will the FBI meet the 30-day deadline?
Well, we are working with our partners at the Department of Justice to produce, as we've always committed to producing what we can lawfully, legally produce. And we will continue to meet those metrics, reminding the public that there are court orders in place, protective orders, and orders to seal in place that legally prohibit the disclosure of information related to any investigation when there's a court order of that fashion. So we're working with DOJ to say if we can produce anything more.
As FBI director, will you commit?
I know he sniffs, and I'm not making a drug joke. My impression, and again, this is not to be unduly harsh on Kash Patel, this is a DOJ failure. I mean, the FBI itself is sort of under the umbrella of the DOJ. Another non-answer. All right, so we're gonna, the FBI. I mean, I don't even know what the FBI's authority would be to comply with that. There's court sealed. Some of these files are sealed. Well, DOJ can certainly make some motions to unseal. It's like he's governed by a higher order that is the DOJ, that is absolutely derelict in their duties as relates to their duties and promises as relates to Epstein. Let's keep going.
To as few blacked out sections or redactions as possible.
We always do. We have in our productions to Congress, which have been historic to this year, and we'll treat every matter in the same fashion while also upholding always victims' rights. Victims' rights in any case, whether it's President Trump's case, this case, or any case, the victims' rights statutes are preeminent, and we will protect those victims at all costs.
Now, put it on pause here. Dershowitz, when he put out that video that I don't think he's commented on much since, said, I've seen the list, there is a list. And when they say they're trying to protect the victims, what they might be saying also is that they're trying to protect some people who made false accusations, who jumped on the, call it a Me Too bandwagon, for lack of a better word, an Epstein Me Too bandwagon, and made false accusations about other people. What are we getting here other than basically non-answers, non-committal, every caveat under the sun for it might be redacted, you might not get information, and it's up to the DOJ, and the DOJ under Bondi is the one that bungled this like nothing else from day one for no better reason and for no possible excuse.
President Trump told your boss, Attorney General Pam Bondi, to look into the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Democrats, including former President Bill Clinton. Is the probe limited to Democrats, or will you follow the facts wherever they lead?
We'll just follow the facts. It's pretty.
Sorry, you know what? That's actually the most soft. Will you follow the facts where they lead? I mean, he's already said it. Sorry, let me just.
Limited to Democrats, or will you follow the facts wherever they lead?
We'll just follow the facts. It's pretty simple for this FBI.
And now the problem is this. This is what we're being told now in an interview where for the last, again, unforced, bungled errors, Trump, for whatever the reason, based on whoever's advice, and I think Pam Bondi ought to have been replaced even before the Epstein debacle. 6 months ago, Epstein files, and then the 180 turn where it was anybody who's still pushing this is not a Trump supporter, doesn't need the support. There's nothing to see here. It's a hoax, which is a bad shortcut name that Trump used because it's not to say it didn't happen. It was to describe the fact that the Democrats were going to weaponize it to try to inculpate Donald John Trump. My understanding is that apparently, this is not from any insider information, this is just what's publicly accessible. The argument was to the effect that Trump's name appears in those files because in the emails that were just released, you have Michael Wolff, journalist who wrote the book after having access to the White House, colluding with Epstein to try to get blackmail material on Trump. You have people basically using Epstein to try to implicate Trump. And so his name comes up. And apparently, according to some people's interpretations, that might have been the advice that Trump was given to say, your name comes up a lot in this. So brush it under the rug, even if it means burning a lot of support from some of your most ardent, loyal supporters. And I'm not talking about myself right now. I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie. That's bad advice if that advice came from Bondi. That's bad, stupid advice that has led to disastrous consequences. Now in this interview, we're being told that Trump is saying, investigate and disclose, and Kash Patel is saying, okay, fine, we're going to do it. While basically saying you might not get anything because it might be redacted, it might be victim protection, and it might be stuff that we can't release because it's sealed under the law. Or, as Pam Bondi has now suggested, new information, so no comment, no disclosure of new information. This, I don't want to say gaslit is a term that gets used a little too often, a little too flippantly. This is pretty close. What was the third one that I had here? Let me put on pause here. Oh, yeah. So the Epstein files, a lackluster response, non-committal, and almost committing to not total transparency, not full disclosure, not full compliance, short time frame, but there might be a whole hell of a lot of redactions. And, because it's about protecting the victims, despite the fact that I think all of the victims, to their credit, although the way that victim press conference was weaponized is a problem in and of itself. But are there any victims who are saying don't disclose this? Unless the argument is going to be we're protecting the victims of false accusations, and that would be people who fraternized with Epstein but who didn't engage in criminality allegedly, and so we're not disclosing some of this information to protect those who might have been falsely accused and settlements reached, whatever. After having been told that there's nothing to see here, move on, and we don't need your support on this. And then a total reversal 180, sign the bill, all Republicans go sign the bill, the Epstein Disclosure Act and whatever. And now just don't have any high expectations. All right. Epstein. So we got the other scandal.
On the Epstein files.
Not you. The other scandal is the Charlie Kirk assassination. We'll get to the pipe bomber as well. The four biggies. They were supposed to clean house at the FBI. First thing Kash Patel does is, thank the dedicated workforce. How many of them overlap with the last 10 years of corruption? Epstein, the bond. Oh yeah, hold on one second. That would have been my follow-up question. I forgot about that follow-up question. Kash, has the CIA run any cross names? And he'd say, well, you have to ask the CIA. Okay, well, has the FBI been working with the CIA to cross-reference any information as relates to Epstein? Does the CIA have the information that we need on Epstein that has not yet been disclosed because everybody's sort of harping on Kash Patel and the FBI? Okay. Then we get to Charlie Kirk. And this is another one which is going to do nothing except exacerbate conspiracy theories. And I won't name any names, but you know exactly who I'm talking about, are going to say this is the evidence that they're not looking in to the potential of foreign interests. The rumors on the street on Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard when they were trying to look into this, or apparently looking into the Kirk assassination for a potential terrorist element angle to it. Listen to this. I'll play it uninterrupted, 90 seconds of me shutting my face.
On the Charlie Kirk assassination investigation, you testified recently that more than 20 people were on the Discord chat related to the suspect, Tyler Robinson. Mm-hmm. Have you spoken to those people? Is it now a larger universe of 20 people?
Well, so with the Charlie case, it's a matter that is being led by the state authorities in Utah because it is a homicide investigation that is being prosecuted by the state. So us as the FBI are partners and part of that prosecution team. We're not the lead, and it's very much ongoing. So there is a lot of legal process being doled out, and we are committed to issuing every piece of legal process and search warrant that we can to talk to absolutely everyone and anyone who had anything to do with the assassination of my friend. And we're going to continue to do that and also honor the prosecutor's wishes and how we do that and what we release publicly.
Respecting that it is an ongoing investigation, is there any evidence of foreign involvement? Is there any evidence that Tyler Robinson had help?
Again, that will be spoken through by the prosecutors. If I, as the FBI director, commented on that right now in any way, shape, or form, that would hurt their case. And the worst thing that can happen is the individual who's charged and has his day in court down the road is if we, the FBI, or another law enforcement agency improperly commented on evidence and gave the defense an unfair advantage during the trial.
I'll pause it here. And I'll say one thing that I've said before, and I've taken a little bit of flack. I can understand why there are two elements to this. It's a state prosecution. And so I understand why the state isn't coming out with, maybe not total transparency, is not disclosing any and all of the evidence, taking questions as relates to the state prosecution of Tyler Robinson. That much I understand. Some people say, well, disclose it anyhow. Others are going to say they have good reason not to. You don't want to taint a jury pool. You don't want to compromise the prosecution. You don't want to give, strategic heads up to the defense. And you don't want to be accused of trying to poison the jury pool or influence a prospective jury pool through disclosures pre-trial. Similar thing to Kohlberger, where the Dateline ran that expose, and I was not on the fence. I just hadn't really taken a hard position on Kohlberger one way or the other. But when I saw that expose, I'm like, holy shit, I think he's guilty. Like if I'm a prospective jury member and I see that, I think he's guilty. And if that prejudices the prosecution, as I imagine it could have, Kohlberger ended up pleading guilty, so that eliminated any doubt. I can understand that. There's a question I would have had as a follow-up to this. Are the feds going to prosecute any federal crimes against the accused, Robinson? Any others? If this is an incident of terrorism, there should be federal charges. Are you pursuing those? There were 20 other people on that Discord chat? Are any of them under investigation? What is the idea that we're going to have to wait for the trial, the state trial of Tyler Robinson, in order to determine whether or not the feds are going to bring any federal charges against Tyler Robinson or anyone else who partook in what I believe firmly was an act of domestic terrorism? I believe, my humble belief, and I take shit for this as well, I don't believe the official narrative. I just, based on all the evidence that's out there right now, I think Tyler Robinson took the shot, even with my interview with Chris Martenson, where we went over his hypothesis that the round could not have been a 30-06. I still believe, and it's been sort of affirmed or positively asserted by people who know more than me, that unless you know the charge of that round, you can't determine anything that it wasn't the 30-06. Even after my interview with Chris Martenson, I think he opened the possibility that, yeah, there's an explanation pursuant to which it could be the 30-06 fired from that rifle and Tyler Robinson. Do I believe that nobody else was involved? Hells to the bells, no. Do I believe that Israel was involved? No. I mean, there might be some evidence later on. What I believe is my personal humble belief, based on what we know, based on that Discord chat, based on the fact that now Patel is coming out and saying there were upwards of 20 other people who had, some form of knowledge of this. I believe that other people participated in it, knowingly egging on this individual, radicalizing him, had advanced knowledge of the incident, posting on it, because we've seen those posts, unless they were fake and they've since been disproven. Something big's going to happen at Utah. People knew in advance. They said nothing. I believe there was a conspiracy to murder Charlie Kirk. I believe it is terrorism, and there should be some federal charges there as well. But what answer do we get out of this? Nothing. Don't want to say anything. Don't want to prejudice the state prosecution. Can't confirm if there's any federal prosecution. Can't confirm if there's investigating any other people here. And foreign involvement, other than the rumors that Kash Patel was getting angry at Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard for looking into that. You guys wait, and when the trial comes around, we'll see what evidence comes out that might confirm that this was some sort of incident of terrorism. We'll see who else was involved when the trial comes around. I don't know how much time Catherine Herridge had with him, but that would have been my follow-up question. Is anyone else under investigation right now? Don't tell me who. Where the hell is the boyfriend, Triggs? Is he under investigation? But that's at the state level. At the federal level, is anyone else under investigation? Is there any indication that this was a coordinated terrorist plot involving recently designated terrorist organizations in the United States? None of it. And then one last one, and then we're going to be done with this interview. And I hope I'm not being unfair. I hope I'm not being unfair, and I hope I'm not being getting ahead of my skis or over my britches. This is just, I listened to this interview so that you don't have to. Oddly enough, my analysis is longer than the interview itself, but at least you get my thoughts and my insights. The January 6th pipe bomber. This is just the other, elephant in the room. Called just the other pipe bomb in the room.
In a recent cable news interview with Fox, you said to stay tuned about the January 6th pipe bomber case. Are there new developments we can discuss?
There are new developments. Can we discuss them? Not at this time, but I think you'll be hearing from us soon on it.
There are new developments. I can't discuss them, but I think you'll be hearing from me. When was the interview when they last discussed the January? It was 6 months ago that Patel. All right, so there are developments. I think you'll be hearing something. I'm not committing to it.
Are you closer to making an arrest?
Catherine, could you just have, I don't want to say bite the bullet, pun intended. Could you not have just asked, what is your assessment of Steve Baker's expose? Do you formally refute it? Do you have no comment? What is your analysis? What is your opinion on Steve Baker's expose that purports to have identified the January 6th pipe bomber? Do you have anything to say about it? No.
When we took over the FBI, we knew there was a renewed interest in a lot of cases of great public importance.
Renewed interest? It wasn't renewed. This was a promise. We're going to find out what happened on January 6th. It's not a renewed interest. There has never been a lull in the interest of this case. These were some of the biggest issues that Kash Patel and Bongino had been talking about for the last 5 years. This is the true insurrection. January 6th was not an insurrection by Trump supporters. It was a seditious insurrection by the authorities in Washington. Sorry.
And of course, this one, where it was alleged that someone went to the United States Capitol grounds and planted a bomb to possibly blow up then Vice President Kamala Harris or other Republicans and other Democrats on Capitol Hill, was one we felt important enough to redouble our investigative tactics. And that's what we've done. And like we did in the Comey case, when we made presentations in court, when the American...
Unfortunately, like you did in the Comey case, is not going to be the best metric for comparison for success going forward.
public finds out the presentations we will be making if we get to a judicial decision, then
we're going to find out the representations we will be making if it ever gets to a judicial. That sentence doesn't say anything, and like maybe I'm just a cynic. Maybe I spent too much time practicing law. For those of you who don't know, I did practice for over 13 years. This is an answer. Like if I get this answer in a deposition, I was like, can you just say that again? In fact, say that 5 times and tell me what sense that makes. So if whatever information, let me play it again.
When the American public finds out the presentations we will be making if we get to a judicial decision,
the presentations we will be making if we get to it. So you may not be making them. So we may not ever find out.
Then they will see how much was missed in this case and what we have done. And I hope the American public will realize our commitment to putting out as much information as we can when we can on cases of great public importance.
Okay. You're gonna show us how much was missed. By whom? By the very same, FBI employees that you started this interview off by congratulating and celebrating. Missed by whom? And it wasn't information that was missed. If this was a false flag federal operation, nothing was missed. It was a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy to exacerbate a political crisis so that you could weaponize the entire DOJ, FBI against your political adversaries. And the people that did that are now the same people working currently at the FBI under Kash and Dan. What has been done to purge those very people who partook in that Fedsurrection? What has been done to purge them? We're working with them right now. 5 years later, we've doubled down our efforts, and you'll see what we're going to reveal if we ever get to a process where we reveal what we say we've got.
There's been a lot of media reporting about the pipe bomb case recently. Have there been any significant breakthroughs for the FBI in recent days?
I got to pause this. Now that I rewatch it a third time, it's almost like Catherine is afraid to just say, what about the recent breakthrough? Is it true that Steve Baker successfully identified the suspect? Is that like, it's like we're playing not categories. What's the other one? What's the one where you have to try to describe something without using the word? Have there been any breakthroughs? Like a certain bombshell expose that broke 2 weeks ago that was never formally denied by the FBI with other than some opaque statement, the reward is still outstanding.
Have there been any significant breakthroughs for the FBI in recent days?
Yes.
Such as?
Of course, I'd like to have a little bit more, but can you share any more? Do you expect that there will be a charge before the end of the year?
My job is to protect the integrity of the investigation, and I know that causes a lot of backlash from some sectors of the online community.
Well, this will be one of them. My job is to protect the integrity of the investigation. I would argue the job is to pursue the investigation and transparency and disclose updates, or at least get some concrete. We're bordering on the statute of limitations. This is as judicial of an emergency as anything gets. This is a judicial emergency. This is going to be time barred by January 7th, 2026. That gives us November to December, January. A month and a week, a month and a half.
I'd rather speak through our casework in public and be able to assure the American public that we are delivering actual accountability than just sit here and tell you, okay, I think we're going to get them.
I don't know how much, like seriously, I don't know how much more of a non-answer you can get on something that should be just, hey, is Steve Baker wrong? Can you don't talk with the investigator. Is Steve Baker wrong? Period. Yes or no? Can't comment on that. Okay. Are you looking into the details of Steve? Have you consulted with his gate expert to determine the methods that he used? Have you revisited the person of interest too that was cleared by the then corrupt FBI that you are now prosecuting through Comey and others? Well, Comey was gone before that, so scratch that. It was it's very frustrating because it's what if there's constructive criticism and there's destructive criticism. I've mentioned this before. Like when it came to Justin Trudeau, Mark J. Carney, You're not criticizing them to make them better as politicians. You're criticizing them so they get voted out of office. When it comes to Trump, and in responding to the Trump sycophants who give us shit and call us panicans and whatever, you're not criticizing. I am not criticizing Trump when I do to destroy or try to encourage people not to vote for Trump. Trump, as far as I'm concerned, might be the last hope for these United States of America. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I sincerely believe this. And if that's the case, you're not going to ensure the survival of this great nation, its constitution, by giving them a pass when it comes to prosecuting the people who took a hot, steaming dump on that constitution. And so I never criticized Trump or Patel for the sake of criticizing Trump or Patel. I criticize Bondi. She needs to be replaced. And I don't know how much of this is attributable to Bondi versus Patel, but Bondi is not inspiring confidence, and neither is Patel with these answers. And I don't know that there's anybody who's going to watch that interview other than the most butt-kissing sycophant who's, yeah, great interview, Kash. We all trust you. We all feel better now having watched that. 6 weeks out of the statute of limitations lapsing on Jan 6, not a boo peep about some of the most recent breaking developments, and a non-answer. Well, if and when we'll talk about it, and just get those charges in on January 5th, and then have some activist judge dismiss the charges, and then whoa, whoopsie doodle, we're time barred. Everyone involved in the January 6th Fedsurrection can walk, live free. Oh, and by the way, come back to bite each and every one of these people in the ass if they get power in 2026, and even harder if they get it in 2028. So this is also, on the one hand, not destructive criticism. In fact, it's a little bit more than constructive criticism. This administration needs to succeed. It needs to succeed by getting back to its original course. But for all of us out there, it needs to succeed, because if these Democrats ever get back in power, they will do what they are claiming Trump is doing now on steroids. If you thought it was bad in 2016, and you thought it was bad in 2020, and you thought it was bad in 2024, steroids, like Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco level steroids. They'll be hitting them out of the park every single time. Locking people up, impeaching people, raiding people's houses, surveilling people's social media. And so it's not constructive criticism. It's beyond that. It's self-preservation criticism. This administration needs to succeed, and they need to go hard on the people who took that hot steaming dump on the Constitution. Capital C Constitution. Serenity now.